Hello there, friends. It's Jimmy Maverick. Welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Maverick podcast. And today we're going to talk about who is this year's James Robinson. We're going to look at some late round rookie running backs, look at their situation, and see if they have the potential to do what James Robinson did last year, being the RB-7 in fantasy football. So let's check it out. Here we go.
Listen up. It's time for the Fantasy Maverick podcast, starring the guy who's going to help you win that fantasy championship, Jimmy Maverick.
Hello there, friends. It's Jimmy Maverick. Welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Maverick podcast, coming at you from Santa Fe, New Mexico. Hey, before I begin, if you could please give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment, share it with your friends, and of course, subscribe. Anything you can do with those four things really helps my channel and helps increase my visibility. I do appreciate it, and I do love to answer questions from you guys when you have them. So let's just get right to it. So what we're going to talk about today is who is this year's James Robinson? Now, last week I talked about Robbie Anderson. Who is this year's Robbie Anderson? That's late round wide receivers that end up being an every week starter with wide receiver 2 upside. We had some good choices there. With James Robinson, it was a bit of an unusual situation. This does not happen that much. And what happened was the Jacksonville Jaguars on August 31st of 2020 released Leonard Fournette. This is 7 days before the season was set to begin. And I'm sorry, it was more like 10 days before the season was set to begin. And let me just say, I always say draft as late as possible, as close to the beginning of the season as you can, because for all those people that already ran their drafts prior to that, it was basically up to the fastest person that scrambled onto their waiver wire and picked him up. It just went to the fastest guy. And whereas in all my drafts, I was able to get him in most of my drafts. A couple ones I waited too long, I didn't get him. But obviously, great asset. He was the RB-7 last year. And for those of you who took Leonard Fournette, boy, that was a terrible thing. He went from the RB-10 to the RB-44 last year. So it was a huge negative consequence for Fournette, who was like a second or third round guy last year in the draft. And a great boon to those people who, just went onto the waiver wire and were able to get him. Robinson was going after the point that the cut occurred and he was elevated to the starter. He was going at about ADP 101. So that's kind of the range we're going to look at today. And these guys, they're rising. All three of these guys I'm going to talk about, they are rising up the draft board right now. People are getting more and more bullish on them. That makes them riskier. If you can get them around pick 100, that's virtually no risk to your team. But if they move up into the 80s and the 70s and the 60s, all of a sudden that upside starts to evaporate. The risk starts to increase. So it's important to consider. So let's talk about 3 rookies right now that are in the best situation to where they could take over. And the first one is a guy by the name of Michael Carter. Currently going at ADP number 95 on the horrifyingly bad Jets in complete rebuild mode. But you know what? It doesn't matter. James Robinson was the RB-7, and Jacksonville went 1-15 last year, okay? If they're involved with the passing game and they get a heavy workload, they're going to be fine. James Robinson ended the season, what did he get? 240 carries, and 60 targets. So we had 300 touches and targets. Just an amazing deal to get a guy with 300 touches and targets at the 101 is amazing. So and Michael Carter, is going at about the same place, 95. Now according to ESPN, he is currently 3rd on the depth chart. But when you look at who's ahead of him, it's no one to be concerned about. You've got Tevin Coleman, and you've got Ty Johnson. And again, Tevin Coleman is another new addition to the team. Ty Johnson was on the team last year. But both these guys are low reliability players. Last year, Tevin Coleman only played 8 games. And in the 8 games he played, he amassed a total of 87 scrimmage yards. I am not scared of Tevin Coleman right now. And I think when you're looking at the situation, oh, who's going to be cut before the beginning of the season starts, I think Tevin Coleman is probably the greatest probability of all the players we're going to talk about today. Now, some things to know about Michael Carter. He's from the University of North Carolina, which is part of the ACC. Not really a top-tier conference, sort of a second-tier conference, but he did start all 4 years. In his senior year, he had 156 carries. I can't read my handwriting. 156 carries, got 1,245 yards and 8 touchdowns. He also had 25 catches for 267 yards and 2 touchdowns. So an outstanding season on a shortened season. I think it was only 11 games. So really, really good. If you do the math, you will see that this guy got 8 yards per carry in 2020, which is nuts. Crazy. There are so many crazy college stats coming out this year, like Jamar Smith, what he did. And, I mean, here's another example. 8 yards per carry. Absolutely crazy. His career average is 6.6 yards per carry. So that's very exciting. Now, of all the 3 running backs we're going to talk about today, this guy is the smallest. He is 5'7", 201 pounds, which is undersized for an NFL quarterback. And that's something to be concerned about is could he become, what everybody wants is a bell cow. I don't think he has the physical makeup to be a bell cow. He is smaller than James Robinson, and so, he will be part of a committee regardless of what happens. But that doesn't mean he's useless. Right now I have him projected with 181 carries and 47 targets. So it's not 300. It's not the 300 threshold, but it's over 200. That's a solid amount of usage to build on, and there's upside there. He could get more carries. He could get more targets, and so I currently have him valued as my RB-30. He's the 85th most valuable player. And like I said, he is a guy that I do like targeting in a lot of my drafts so far, just because of where he is right now in the draft and what his upside is. And his upside right now is a flex, but I think he is a good option, a clearest path to a lead back role, even if he ends up as part of a committee. All right. So the next guy is a guy who I also really, really like, who's going at about the same point as Michael Carter, although he is moving up right now. He is at ADP 86, and it's Trey Sermon. And in this situation, he is only behind Raheem Mostert for the starting job. So there's not 2 people in front of him. There's only one. That's better. Mostert is a low reliability player. And here's something to consider. Even if Mostert stays healthy, he is not a bell cow. He is not going to get 300 touches and targets. He's never, ever done that. The most, let's see here. I think the most touches he's ever had in a season was 2019 when he played all 16 games. He had 137 touches and 22 targets. That's his ceiling. The dude is also 29 years old. There's not upside for Mostert right now, and he could put together a very solid year. I do think that's in the realm of possibilities. But quite frankly, Trey Sermon has the opportunity here to move into more of a lead back role, taking a larger share of this backfield. Now he is larger than Michael Carter, which is good. Let's see here, and right now I have them at a 55-45 split with Mostert getting the 55%. So Mostert getting about 190 opportunities with the ball, Sermon getting about 163 opportunities with the ball. And the other thing to consider with San Francisco is Shanahan does not employ bell cows. He employs a committee. So I see this as a roughly equal split. And I think as time goes by, it's going to move to the younger guy because I don't know if Mostert's going to be able to hold up. And if Mostert goes out, that will help Trey Sermon, but it's also going to build up the guys behind him. The guys Wayne Gallman and Jeff Wilson Jr., who are behind Trey Sermon right now. So that's what you need to know about Trey Sermon. And the other important thing to know actually about Trey Sermon is one thing I forgot to mention is that he is not a pass catcher. He's not a pass catching back. So his role top end is a first and second down back. But you give him the goal line carries. That's a good thing. When we're talking risk and reward here, I'm less bullish on Trey Sermon than I am on Michael Carter, just because there's a lot more hurdles. And the other thing to consider is Trey Lance. We got a Trey Sermon and a Trey Lance on this team. But when Trey Lance takes over this offense, which I believe will happen by week 5, probably right after the bye week, is when he'll get his start. That guy's a running quarterback. He's going to take away goal line touchdowns. He's going to be a vulture. He's going to be a touchdown vulture. That's also very risky. So Trey Sermon, I just don't think it's in the cards. The way the coach operates, the new quarterback that's coming in, I think Trey Sermon will be great with Garoppolo. If Garoppolo can hold on to his job, Trey Sermon will be great. But if it goes to Trey Lance is going to take the goal line carries, and that's really going to hurt Sermon. So I would kind of stay away from Sermon. After looking at this, I don't know if he's the best choice for your fantasy team this year. Now, the third guy, again, going at about the same place, is Javonte Williams. And Williams is starting to rise up the draft board. Now, of course, we know that with the Denver Broncos, Melvin Gordon is in front of him. And right now, both those guys are going at about the same place in the draft. And it makes sense because they're looking at about a 50-50 share as far as projections go right now. And I know a lot of people are thinking, is Melvin Gordon going to get cut? And I got to tell you, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't see it happening. The way his contract is structured, he's got $4.5 million guaranteed this year. He's already been paid out a big chunk of his $16 million contract. I think it's like a $6 million dead cap hit. If they cut him, his incentives only amount to an additional like $2.5 million. So I don't really see it in the realm of possibilities that why they would cut Melvin Gordon because Javonte Williams is so good. What I see as the more likely path when they drafted Javonte Williams is I said that Melvin Gordon is not going to be on the team next year. This is the second year of his 2-year contract. He will just be released, and it will be Javonte Williams next year. But this year, it's probably going to be a 50-50 split. And that's probably good for the Broncos because it gives them fresh legs. Not so great for fantasy football. I also just want to mention that Melvin Gordon, he was facing those legal issues. Those DUI charges were dropped due to lack of evidence. So that's in the clear. He still might get sanctioned by the NFL, but it's not going to be anything major. Maybe a game or two. It's nothing to worry about. Now, here's something I didn't realize this. Javonte Williams was Michael Carter's teammate at UNC. And in his senior year, this is all last year, right? Javonte Williams got 157 carries for 1,140 yards and 19 touchdowns. Holy crap. Like I said, I don't know what happened last year in college football, but these stats are insane for the number of games that they had. I mean, there's only like 10 or 11 games that most of the college teams played, and you got guys put up 23 passing touchdowns and 19 rushing touchdowns. He also got 3 passing touchdowns. The guy got 22 touchdowns and averaged 7.3 yards per carry. That is, I don't know what they're doing at UNC, but someone's got to implement that running game in the NFL. Holy crap, is that the 2 running backs sharing time, and they both get over 7 yards per carry. Again, it's the ACC. But again, his college average, 6.3 yards per carry. And of all the backs we're talking about, Javonte Williams is the biggest. He is he's 5'9", 212. Again, of these three guys, he's the largest, but he does not appear to have enough size to be one of those 3-down bell cow backs. Now, it doesn't mean he can't be, because if you look at James Robinson, he's also about this size. So, it can be done, but when you look at like the true RB1 bell cows, guys like Zeke and Saquon and Henry and those guys, they're in the 230-pound range. They're over 6 feet tall. They're big. They're really big. Again, he's the biggest of the three, so that's very good. Right now, I have him projected with a 55% share of this backfield. So 204 touches, 29 catches, 6 total touchdowns, which might be a little low. It seems like that's a little bit low, considering that Melvin Gordon got 11 touchdowns last year total. I think 11 through the 9 on the ground, 2 in the air. But again, it's going to be a split backfield. But that's pretty good usage. I mean, we're talking, you're talking with the catches, that's probably about 40 targets. So you're almost at 250 touches and targets. That's the most of all three of these guys are projecting right now. So that's pretty good. I do like Javonte Williams, but the thing is right now he is rising. He's rising rapidly on draft boards. I think people are starting to realize this, but that's the concern I have, is that they're going to overbid him because they're thinking that Melvin Gordon's going to be out of there. And I don't think it's going to happen. I do not see that happening. Melvin Gordon is not in decline. He had a great season last year. He got 4.6 yards per carry. And he had 250 touches, 32 catches, 10 total touchdowns, 44 targets. So, he was at over 250 touches and targets. Solid, RB2 volume. And I think that's kind of Javonte's ceiling as far as where he's at right now. So of the three, who would I want the most? I think Michael Carter would be my pick. Easiest path to the starting job. There's not a lot of competition in that backfield. And, it's going to be a poor offense. So with all these guys, the one other thing I want to say, when it comes to rookie running backs, the most important thing, you need to look at these guys when you're considering them. And of course, training camp hasn't opened yet, but once training camp opens, the most important thing is to see how they're doing with the pass blocking and the blitz pickups. Because if they can't get that down, they're not going to be on the field. It's the most important thing, more important than any of their other stats that we're talking about. So with all three of these guys, you got to watch this. It's at a different speed level in the NFL. It's sometimes hard for players to get it. And you will see many times in the NFL where a less talented running back will be trotted out onto that field where the more talented guy is sitting on the bench, and you're just like, why are they sitting that guy? He's the better running back by far. I'll tell you why, is because the other running back is better at pass blocking, at pass protection, and blitz pickup. That's why he's on the field. And so if these guys can't get that down, I wouldn't even take them. Don't even bother, because they're going to sit on your bench, and they're going to sit on the bench during the game. So definitely keep that in mind. But again, I think of the three. I think Carter's the best. I do like Javonte Williams next, and I think Trey Sermon is third right now. It's just not a good situation for him on multiple things. Even if everything goes his way, there's a lot of roadblocks to him getting a substantial workload. So that's where I'm at with that right now. Although I do like him. But I would much prefer to have Michael Carter or Javonte Williams on my team. So anyway, so that's it. I looked at the other rookie the other rookie running backs. Really, none of the other guys are going to be a factor. But we'll have to wait and see what happens when camp opens. There might be some names that pop in. James Robinson was a walk-on. He was not drafted. He walked on and he got the starting job. That can happen again. But we'll just have to wait for training camp to open as far as that's concerned. So that's it. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you found this informative. What do you think about these three players. I mean, do you agree, or do you think that maybe one of these guys is going to be better than the others? So it's all things to consider and all things to talk about. Leave a comment down below. Please like and subscribe, and I will be back later with more content. So thank you very much, everybody, for watching. I do appreciate it. Have yourself a great fantasy day. See you later.